Welcome to ShiftWatch. I'm your host, Starbuck. In this special edition episode, I didn't have the opportunity to see or hear Dolores Cannon before her passing in 2014. But listening to her experiences gave clarity to this life for me. Yesterday, I was guided to listen to one of the longer presentations describing how all this began for her in the beginning with her awareness of what she was being shown with her husband. As I listened, many beliefs in what I've concluded coincided with hers. The one that stood out most was her understanding of when higher intelligences began to appear to assist humanity after our development of atomic power and humanity's misuse of it. Until then, humanity had been left to their own evolution without interference by those beings watching. As I examine the timeline of my own life, there's no doubt that I was part of the first wave Dolores describes. I've been in contact with multidimensional beings in preparation for the imminent shift in Earth energies, and my mission is to pass the light codes I carry to others while advising others of what to expect. Next, earthquake swarming is becoming more common, and you're beginning to see the physical results of Earth responding to solar influences like what is happening in Rancho Palos Verdes, California. All over the world, we are seeing elevated seismic activity and the ripple effect it's having on the planet. The Earthmaster provides us with an update. Then, a bit more of Dolores Cannon explaining the nature of the waves of volunteers. And finally, if there was a video that could prepare you for a perspective of the shift coming, this would be it. I found this a few years ago and it resonated with me as to how conditions on Earth will be changed post-shift.
Anything that is supposed to be developed will be developed in the proper time because they know when the civilization needs the next information, the next invention, the next step up the ladder. Well, if you understand they've been watching us since the beginning and taking care of us. When we dropped the bomb, the atomic bomb, at the end of World War II, that really got their attention. They've been watching us all during the war. See, they can't stop the wars. They can't stop everything we're doing. They're just watching. They're watching us all during the war. Well, here at the end of the war, we developed atomic power. And what do we do with it? We go and make a bomb. That got their attention. They said, we better get down there and see what these kids are up to. And they were very unhappy about it because it was not supposed to be in our timeline yet. When it was time for it to be developed, it was supposed to be developed for peace, for energy, for electricity. It was not supposed to be used for a weapon. But once you create something for negativity, it has that, what we call aura of negativity around it, and it will never really be what it was supposed to be. But they said they're really worried about it because they said these kids don't know what they're playing around with. Because they just came through this horrible war. They can't take care of themselves. They have no idea what they're doing. Now they bring up atomic power. They could destroy the world. They have no idea what they're working with. I have all this information flooding into my head. And you have no idea the energy that's coming off the audience, too. That's the reason I sit down. I'm a smaller target that way. Okay. Okay. Humans have been on Earth for so long, making the same mistakes over and over and over. We're caught on the wheel of karma, and they know this. They said you can't even figure out your own lives. You got the country in a mess. You just came through this war. Because people go through the same lives over and over again, making the same mistakes. The karma over and over and over. They don't learn. They got to keep coming back to do it over again. If Jesus came to save us from anything, what I found out was he came to save us from the wheel of karma. Because we were just going round and around and around, making the same mistakes instead of moving up the ladder. And he was to show us how to live through love. But people didn't understand it, and they killed him. So here we're going, life after life after life, going round and around, making the same mistakes over and over again with the same people. They said, these kids can't even take care of their own lives. They can't take care of the world. They're never going to be able to understand atomic power. They will blow up the world. Now, the law of non-interference just goes so far. They are not allowed to interfere unless we get to the point we could destroy the world. If that were to happen, it would cause reverberations throughout the whole solar system and into other parts of the galaxy. You have no idea what it would do if this, I said, this little planet, we're isolated over here on purpose. We're a young planet. They want to keep us away from everybody else. They don't want us to contaminate the rest of those planets. But if this little insignificant planet were to destroy itself, it would send reverberations out. And it would also go into other dimensions and interfere with lives of other people on other planets, that it would be like undeclared war. You can't even begin to believe the reverberations it would have if something happened to this planet. So they said that's the only way they could ever interfere, but if we reached the point we were going to destroy the world, then they would have to step in. This has happened countless times through history, and I'm going to be going over some of that. Oh, but they've always been there. This is the thing. So they knew that atomic power was so dangerous in the hands of children that we could misuse it and destroy the world. They said, what are we going to do now? We can't come in and say, stop it, you can't do it. That's interference. They came up with what I thought is a brilliant plan.
Hey, how's it going there, folks? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're at out here on this Thursday. It's about 10:29 a.m. California time. September 5th, 2024 is the date. Your latest activity on the globe shows a 1.4. Also, a little bit of larger movement there into the Nevada area this morning. Got a 3.1 coming in within the last hour as well. In a cluster of earthquakes. Once again, this area is just rocking and rolling with earthquake activity here recently. Let's see what we got overnight. Well, we're coming up on 70 earthquakes here in the last 24 hours, but that's just adding on to the multitude of quakes here over the last week or so. As far as overnight, overnight activity, a couple ones. There's that 3.1 in the last hour. A couple other smaller quakes in there as well. Now I do have, looks like they made a little adjustment here on the seismograph station. I'll have to check that, but the Grapevine Ranger Station is located out here somewhere in the proximity of these earthquakes. So that should be showing up in terms of the reading from these quakes coming in. But yeah, things still stirring up out here across this area south of Tonopah. I can only imagine what our total tally looks like now in the last week or so in this area, approaching 200 earthquakes just in the last 7 days for this area. So, and it's all across, it looks like a little linear fashion here across the Goldfield Hills area of Nevada. Numerous fault systems, obviously, all throughout Nevada. And, of course, that's a good sign here of stress out against the plate boundary itself, the San Andreas Fault. Down here in Southern California, as far as overnight activity goes, let's see if we got anything above 2.5. Nothing above 2.5 here for Southern California. The latest one shows 2.3 down across the southern area of the state. Also some movement up here around Bakersfield again. And just kind of keeping an eye on it. Things have been quite active out here across the southern portion of the state and inland here into western Nevada. So definitely be on guard. Bay Area, handful of smaller quakes out here against the San Jacinto or the San Andreas Fault here, the creeping segment, leading off to the Calaveras Fault Zone, which extends up here towards Concord. A couple of smaller quakes this morning. Northern California, pretty quiet. Not a whole lot going on up here. It's a little odd. Most of the movement here recently has been roughly about the creeping segment eastward and then southward. You pretty much draw a circle around this area. Seems to be getting more intense lately.
They went back to the councils, they had meetings on this. They said, all right, we can't interfere from the outside. Maybe we can influence from the inside. So they came up with a brilliant plan. The people on earth aren't doing it. They're too stuck in karma, too stuck on the wheel. We're going to have to bring in other souls that have never been here before and that are not stuck on the wheel of karma. Those are the ones we're going to have to bring in. Pure souls, never been contaminated by earth before. So that was what they decided to do. And the call went out for volunteers. And I've had hundreds of these sessions, and I've written about them in the books about, I'd find one here, one there, and that's why the whole story is coming together about the 3 waves. Now, none of you know this consciously, but now that it's coming out in my radio shows and the Project Camelot and the books, I get emails all the time saying, I'm first wave, I'm second wave. Now it makes sense, I finally understand. But on your conscious level, you don't understand, you don't know what in the world's going on. Okay. The call went out. Earth is in trouble. We need souls to volunteer and come and help. Will you help Earth? And I've had many, many sessions when some of them are at the meetings they're holding in the spirit world and all different parts, and they'll say, who wants to volunteer? And they say, they raise their hands, I'll go, I'll go. Then they say they get down here and they say, what was I thinking? This is horrible. What was I thinking about? But what I have found, these volunteers are coming from 2 different places. Before, all those years, when I would take people into past lives, it would be normal past lives. I have people go back to where they're animals too, but I still consider that normal. Animals, birds, plants, rocks, even rocks of consciousness, everything has consciousness. When I have somebody go back to where they're a rock, they say, life is very slow. But in the last book, I talk about a whole lot of lives as animals. But these, and I want to know how the animal thinks, how it sees, how it perceives things. My curiosity again. So, those were normal lives. They were all going back to lifetimes where they had lessons they had to learn with people now, karma with different people in their lives, their families, all of this. So that was what my therapy was all about. Let's find out the cause of your problem. I get people with family problems, physical problems, job problems, and that was where it was going all these years. Now, in the last several years, things have changed. The only ones I'm finding now who are going back to normal past lives are those that still have karma to repay. These other ones are coming up with something totally different. Now, how can you explain this if it happens again and again and again? They go to 2 places. Some of them were ETs, they don't like that term, on other planets, spaceships, other planets, other dimensions. Some of them lived in places where they were light bodies. They didn't even have a body. You imagine how to get that far advanced and then to volunteer to come down here. And they have never been on Earth before because they've always lived on other planets and other dimensions. Then we have some who have never been anything. They had never left God before. And this is tremendous when I have these sessions with these people. Would you imagine what a shock it would be to these souls They're so pure and they're so unaffected by our junk here to come into this life. It's very difficult for them to function here. But when I've had them go back to God, they call it the source. They always say the source. They always describe it the same way. And I have a whole section in the last book on what God and what the source is. In my book, Between Death and Life, was the first time I ever got someone going back to God. And they were explaining about, they said, you have no idea what God is. Your perception of God is like a tiny thread compared to what it really is. You have no way of understanding what it is. And then they say, think of those people who do not have as much understanding as metaphysical people do. Their concept of God isn't even as much as a tiny thread. They have no way of understanding the totality of the whole thing. Well, first of all, God is not a man. This is what some of the speakers have been talking about the whole time here. God is not a man. You've got to get over that. If anything, he would have been a woman. Because women are the creative force. He's neither one. He does not have a gender. He's not male and he is not female. It is a power. It's an energy that is absolutely incredible. Every one of them have gone back to him, describe it as a huge bright light. Some of them say, I'm in the sun, but it doesn't burn. It's not like being on fire. It's like being in a huge sun. Some of them describe it as the great central sun. But it is always described as this huge, enormous light, a pulsating light. And when they're there, it is so full of love that they don't want to leave.
So tell me, out of everything you've ever done, what's the craziest experience you've ever had?
That's easy. Earth.
Earth? You went to Earth?
I did.
No way. You were a human?
I was.
Wow. Are the stories about Earth true? Were they really trapped on Earth?
Some were. I know because I was one of the volunteers.
Wait a second. You volunteered to go to Earth?
I did. I had to. I had family trapped on Earth.
But how could you get trapped on Earth?
You had to be there to understand. On Earth, you wouldn't remember anything.
What do you mean you wouldn't remember anything?
I mean, you would have no memory of anything. You wouldn't even remember existing before Earth.
What? How is that possible?
It was designed that way. It was brilliant. To dive as deeply as possible into such ignorance, such darkness, and still find your way back to remembering who you were, that took true mastery.
Wow. I still can't believe you went to Earth. Tell me more.
Well, Earth had its own set of laws that everyone agreed to experience, like gravity. What goes up must come down, like linear time. Day is followed by night.
Time? What's time?
You know how when we think of something it manifests instantly? Well, on Earth there was a delay. The delay is what made Earth so difficult.
Interesting. Time. So tell me more.
Before going to Earth, you would choose your family, whether you wanted to be male or female, what race you wanted to be, the location on the planet, things like that.
Oh, so you could choose your own character.
Exactly. You would enter the Earth as a baby and be completely dependent on others to teach you the rules. But since nobody could remember the rules, they made up their own rules, based on fear and giving your power away to others.
That doesn't sound like much fun.
It wasn't for everyone.
What'd you do while portions of you were on Earth?
I watched them. It was pretty funny.
What was so funny?
Here were these magnificent beings, playing the most unique and cutting-edge experience in the universe, and they were clueless. I tried to guide them as much as possible.
Wait a second, you could communicate with them?
Yes, but they couldn't hear me. I would show them synchronicities or send them impulses to help guide them, but they couldn't see the signs.
Why not?
They didn't trust themselves.
So is that why they sent out a call for help?
Exactly.
Is that when you went?
No, I didn't go until later. The first volunteers, they had it the worst.
What do you mean, had it the worst?
Well, they killed them.
What?
They killed the volunteers.
They killed them?
Those on Earth couldn't understand what the volunteers were telling them. The idea that they were equal to the volunteers scared them.
What were they telling them?
Common sense stuff like, all the answers you seek are inside you. Everything I can do, you can do and more.
So they killed them?
And then they twisted the volunteers' message and created even more fear.
What do you mean, more fear?
Like the message, God is inside you, was turned into, you are separate from God. The message, all the answers you seek are inside you, was twisted into, you can't trust yourself.
And they believed it?
It was out of control.
How could they believe that?
You had to be there to understand. Did you know they actually believed that they were the only intelligent life in the universe?
Now that's funny.
Pretty crazy, I know.
So then what happened?
The designers knew Earth was going to enter a section of the galaxy that humans had never experienced before. A section filled with a frequency that might be able to reconnect the human's DNA.
What was wrong with their DNA?
It didn't work anymore. The thing is, their DNA was how they connected with their higher self.
So that's why your incarnations couldn't hear you.
Exactly. But there was a catch with the new plan. Only those incarnated on Earth could tune in to these new frequencies.
Oh, so they needed more volunteers.
Yes, but this time they were taking no chances. To pull this off, they needed millions in the physical form, wired and ready to attune to these frequencies.
Are these the 21st century humans that all the stories are about?
Yep, we volunteered from every corner of the universe to help the humans wake up.
What did the volunteers have to do once they got there?
We had to wake ourselves up, attune to these frequencies, and spread them to the rest of the planet.
That sounds impossible.
Most of those watching the Earth experiment didn't think we could pull it off.
So what happened when you got to Earth?
Once on Earth, we were taught the same fear-based beliefs that had been handed down for eons. We lived just like everyone else, totally clueless to who we were and what was getting ready to happen. But as soon as the Earth entered this cloud of frequencies, we started to question everything. And one by one, we started to wake up.
So the plan was working.
It was. The more we trusted ourselves, the quicker we reconnected. And the faster we started to remember what was happening. And since we were spread out evenly all around the planet's frequency began to rise quickly.
What happened when the planet's frequency began to rise?
The humans' experience of time began speeding up. They started manifesting their beliefs faster and faster. Those consumed with fear created even more fear, and eventually Earth just spun out of control.
What do you mean, spun out of control?
These low-frequency beliefs that had controlled the human experience for eons could no longer exist, so they began to self-destruct, and the world fell into complete chaos.
That sounds terrifying.
It was for those living in fear. But for us volunteers, we all knew it was the end of the old energy and the beginning of the new.
So then what happened?
A tipping point was reached in our awakening, and we created a new Earth.
A new Earth? What happened to the old Earth?
It continued on, allowing those who could not let go of their fears to play out their lessons. But for us, we created a new Earth that matched our higher frequency. And as easy as that, all the fear-based beliefs simply fell away. In an instant, we remembered who we were. We knew we were all connected, and we stopped hurting each other. We started respecting each other, started loving each other. We took back our power to create, and we created a new Earth without fear.
Wow, So the legends are true. What an incredible experience that must have been. Nice work.
Thanks.